Welcome to SB Nation's Bracket War Room Live, presented to you by Great Clips. I'm Tyler Tynes, a staff writer for SB Nation, here with Ricky O'Donnell, a college basketball editor, and Nick Fasulo, a guy we truly found in the basement. And so we're going to kick it with you a little bit live and do a little bit of things here and get you ready for March Madness. That sound good, guys?
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right, so first, maybe some general thoughts, at least for me. It's a lot of parity in the league this year. A lot of parity going on, and I don't exactly know who is going to win this crazy thing we call March Madness. But what I do know is that the players should be paid, pay the players, and that's really about it. We all need some good gold chains and something good to eat. So, Ricky, what about you? What are your general thoughts?
I just think that this is the best sporting event on the calendar. I love March Madness every single year. The fact that it's a single elimination tournament, the fact that it's the type of event that turns normal college basketball players into cult heroes forever. It just makes this such a unique event, and it's my favorite on the calendar.
Wide open tournament, no clear-cut winner. I think when you're talking to your friends, and they're saying this team's not good enough, they got this flaw, that flaw. Everyone's got flaws. Ask them who they think is going to win. I think it's tougher this year than most years in previous. So that's why we're here to help you help this out a little bit. So.
All right. See, guys from the basement, exactly. They know exactly what they want to do. So we're going to give you a few questions, and we're going to start with the round one of these questions. Ricky and Nick are going to put their answers on this dry erase whiteboard. Ricky, show the people at home. All right. See that? Yep. Right on white. 17-5. He's going to put it right here on the dry erase board, and he's going to give you the answers, and it's going to go simple like that. Do some dialogue. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do round one. What we got back here? All right, so you guys pick one of these from off our magic board.
Oh, we pick? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you guys.
All right, MIA.
MIA, okay. We'll start with MIA. Got these magic cards here. What team that's not in the tournament will you miss the most?
Oh, that was one of our favorites.
Now they'll, if you put some Jeopardy music in the background, they will put it on their dry erase board. All right.
Are you Googling the answer?
Oh, I got the answer.
Oh.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got here. USC and Middle Tennessee State. So let's start with Nick. Nick, tell me exactly why Middle Tennessee State is...
Well, remember, they won a game last year. They won the game 2 years in a row. They beat Minnesota last year, Michigan State the year before. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. And they got this dude, as Ricky and I know very well, Giddy Potts. He's a senior this year, so we won't get to see Giddy send him off the way we wanted to. So I'm really missing them. Marshall beat them in the Conference USA tournament. Marshall's okay, but I'm really going to miss MTSU this year.
Ricky, what about the University of Southern California?
I just thought USC deserved to be in. I mean, if we're letting Syracuse in, USC should definitely be in. They get all the way to the Pac-12 title game this year. They lose to Arizona, but despite that, this is still a 23-win team. I thought that it was a top 10 team in the preseason. Just lots of talent there. They had some injuries. They lost Anthony Melton to suspension with the FBI investigation, but you look up and down this roster, Metu at center, Jordan McLaughlin at point guard, Elijah Stewart at the off guard. They just had a lot of players who I thought were really solid. And it's a shame that we don't get to see him in March.
I'm going to have to agree with Ricky there. USC was one of the better teams in the Pac-12, and they caught on late as of late and really dominated the tournament going in against Arizona. Some great guard play. You got to love Andy Enfield from a few years ago, Florida kids, you know what I mean? Dunk City. That's the point. So, I mean, you can't have UCLA, you can't have Syracuse, you can't have teams like that in this bracket. So it seems very incomplete without having USC.
But also probably one of the most disappointing teams, too. I mean, they were preseason top 10 in some publications, and now they're not even here in the field. I mean, they definitely underachieved all season.
It's true. All right, let's stay in round one. We've got, that one's gone. All right, so let's get another one going. All right, what do we got left?
I'm going to go free will versus predestination.
Free will. First, predestination. All right, let's see what we got here. Which double-digit seed is going the furthest? Take your time, think about it. Get it nice and legible.
My handwriting hasn't improved since 4th grade, so this is not a really
very poor handwriting over here as well.
And I mean that. Oh shit, we agree.
We got the same.
We agree.
New Mexico State. So Ricky, tell me what's going on with New Mexico State.
So.
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing New Mexico State is going for is it's just not in a really hard quadrant. They got Clemson in the first round. I think Clemson is pretty vulnerable team out of the ACC, sort of a middle-tier ACC team. And then they get the winner of Auburn versus Charleston. Auburn won the SEC in the regular season. I still think that that's not a great team top to bottom. They also lost some guys in the FBI suspension or FBI investigation, most notably Austin Wiley, their star center. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a Charleston-New Mexico State round of 32 matchup. And I kind of like the Aggies in that.
Yeah. I don't think New Mexico State is the best double-digit seed in the tournament. I think there's some better 12 seeds, some better 11 seeds, but their matchup, like Ricky said, is pretty favorable. Go look at Clemson's ACC schedule. They didn't play Virginia twice. They didn't play Duke twice. They lost to Temple. They're not that great. They lost one of their best players towards the middle of the ACC conference season. Auburn's kind of the same thing. They're thin up front now. So I could see New Mexico State pulling off an upset in round 1 and then maybe even getting Charleston in round 2 if they pull off the upset against Auburn, and then they should advance to the Sweet 16. It's far-fetched, but it's probably the most likely out of all the other mini quadrants that have the 4 or 5 matchup.
They also have a 25-year-old player in this field. I don't know if Zach Lofton is the oldest player in the field, but that guy's been at 5 schools in 6 years, 25 years old, their best offensive threat. I think that he could be poised for a big tournament.
Why are you hating?
Because he's too old?
Mans can't be 25?
I'm not hating. I'm saying, that's an advantage.
I'm just impressed that he stretched out that eligibility that long.
For me, it's definitely going to be Providence. Big Ed Cooley Hive fan here. Providence has been a team almost every single year that has a combination of not only length, but athleticism and a little bit of shooting with dynamic point guard play that has pushed teams like Villanova, like Seton Hall, and the bigger upper echelon part of the Big East year after year after year. They played UNC before in that round of 32 game where they lost by about 10 or 20. So Providence and Ed Cooley is a system that works year in, year again, where they're a mid-level team and they surprise a lot of folks by how tenacious they are on defense and going to the rim every year. So gonna go with the Ed Cooley Hive.
But if you're saying they're the double-digit seed that's going to go the highest, are you saying they're beating? Yeah, are they beating Carolina in round 2?
They might.
I don't see them beating Carolina, but
that's why they didn't ask you, Ricky.
All right. How many games does Providence have to win for Ed Cooley to take a new job?
Ooh, wow. I think they have to win 1.
Just 1?
So if Ed Cooley puts together a championship run at Providence, maybe he stays at Providence, but he's already a guy and a coach that's so good that he should be attracting these top tier jobs already. So I don't think we see Ed Cooley at Providence forever. He's at least there for another year or 2.
Right. We love Ed Cooley here.
So last but not least, in round 1, we have leadership qualities, a thing that Ricky knows all about.
And
Ricky,
I know nothing about.
Because you're from the basement. Which coach is going to take a team farther than it should go? You get Ricky? All right. Got Mark Few and Gonzaga and Kelvin Sampson from Houston.
Which we kind of forget about Kelvin Sampson. He was kind of exiled. He was a college basketball outcast after what happened at Indiana. I think he was an assistant for the Bucks and a couple of their NBA teams. And
Too much texting,
yeah. And you just kind of forgot about him. But now here he is with Houston, one of the more underrated teams in the tournament. I think they nearly won the AAC, which they call a Power 6 conference. I don't know if I'd include it in that, but I do like what this Houston team's doing, and I think it'd be an amazing story if they were to advance second weekend of the tournament. That Western region could go any which way, and they're out there, so I would think that they get a chance to really make some noise. And again, that'd be a very interesting story if they continue to advance, given what Sampson's past is. He could be right back in the limelight.
I've got Gonzaga as a Final Four team coming out of the West. Maybe that's not a huge upset, given the fact that region is anchored by Xavier, arguably the weakest number 1 seed.
Hey, be quiet.
But, they still have Carolina in that bracket. They still have Michigan in that bracket, who's one of the hottest teams in the country. So even if Gonzaga is a little bit of a trendy pick, I think, they are the most reasonable lower-seeded team to me to make a deep run. I just love their interior with Killian Tilly in the front court and Jonathan Williams. Josh Perkins, people forget, was amazing in the first half of the national title game last year. He could have been one of those cult hero guys we talk about forever if Gonzaga ended up winning that game. They also have some shooting on the outside with Zach Norvell, a Chicago kid. I got a ride for him. So I just like this Gonzaga team top to bottom. And I personally think they got what it takes to make a Final Four.
They absolutely do.
And for me, I'm going to go the opposite way. It's Chris Mack. It is Xavier. Because Chris Mack is a guy who could lose early to Gonzaga, but probably won't. And if he does win that, he's getting on to probably a game against Michigan or a game against UNC with potential to get him either in the Elite or the Final Four. So I don't think we're expecting Xavier to do as well as their seed says, because Xavier is known to bloat a little bit when it comes to March. But I like what this Xavier team does, and it would be this Xavier team of all other teams, of the last ones that we've seen, that would probably go the furthest.
You know, you're a Philly guy. The Eagles win the Super Bowl, and now you're calling a 1 seed the team we're most surprised to see make a run.
No one got love for Xavier, so Xavier would be surprising. I mean,
the thing is they 2 years ago they were 2 seed. They lost at the buzzer to Wisconsin. It seems like when they're the underdog, they play their best. As last year was classic case of that. They're in the Elite Eight. But in a way, they're kind of the underdog as a 1 seed, getting no love right now. So maybe this is actually, playing to their advantage, given how they normally respond to these sorts of things.
All right, let's switch it up to round two. Round two, if we can get it on the board. Look at that magic board right there. So Ricky, we'll start you off this time. You go ahead and pick one.
I'm going with the gambler.
Going with the gambler. Let's see what we got here. The gambler. What's your wildest but still rational Final Four pick? And the thing about this Final Four pick so far is the fact that it's the parity, right? Xavier could be there. Michigan could be there. If Michael Porter Jr. is something that we don't expect, maybe Mizzou finds his way there. Villanova might actually get back to another Final Four after kind of blowing it last year. So this is going to be a Final Four where we've seen so many teams up and down that have stacked squads like Kansas, like UNC, like other teams like that who have kind of blown it in a lot of games. UNC, a team that's lost 10 times this season already. But you also have the perennial favorites, the Kentuckys, who aren't doing as well, that could go on a run. The West Virginians.
They're playing better now.
They're playing better now. The West Virginians, who we've been expecting a run from for the last few years, and we haven't got it. Auburn, who was disappointing in the SEC championship. Everybody loves Colin Sexton. So we might get a lot of different options for this. So let's start with Nick. Basic boy Nick, what do we got?
I don't know. That's not the first time I've been called that. Texas Tech, not a super stretch, but they're a 3 seed. So, 3 seeds make the Final Four. I really like this team, though. Keenan Evans is one of the more, he looks like a poor man's Kobe out there, and I say that as a compliment. I really like what he does on the court. He was a little banged up midway through the year. He seems healthy now based on what I've seen in the last few weeks. And Zaire Smith and Jarrett Culver, they're 2 freshman studs that just continue to get a little bit better and better every game. Again, they had injuries during the regular season. It seemed like people kind of forgot about them when they lost that home game to Kansas, because then at that point, they couldn't win the Big 12 title and knock Kansas off the throne, and they kind of got pushed aside. But I still like the talent on this team, and I would not be surprised if they made a run, because they do a lot on offense and defense.
I like Tennessee for this. I feel like in that South region,
You gave up on your whiteboard, Ricky?
Virginia's been the best team in the country.
It doesn't count if you don't write. Ricky, write it on your whiteboard.
1 second.
Ryan is in the back banging on the wall like you have to.
Show the people that you can spell.
That do it for you?
All right.
So what about Tennessee? I mean, the thing is that they're in the South. Virginia has been the best team in the country all season. I think that
Allegedly.
Pretty much undebatable at this point. Also in that region, you got Arizona, you got Kentucky. So there's like name brand powerhouses in the South region, as well as the best team in college basketball from start to finish. So Tennessee, as a 3 seed, I feel like they're being slept on a little bit. They have no NBA players. You're not seeing anyone in a mock draft coming from Tennessee. But what they have is just a strong team that doesn't really make mistakes. Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield just bully people on the inside. This team is just exceeded expectations all year. Jordan Boone, a sophomore guard, has really started to come into his own lately. I like this Tennessee team, and if they were in another region, maybe the West, I think I could pick them to go to the Final Four.
And again, 3 seed, they should get to the Sweet 16, so that's cool. But they always seem to win one more game than they're expected to in the tournament. They've been to a few Sweet 16s. They've been to an Elite Eight, I think, in the last 5 years. They kind of sneak under the radar, and then here they are playing their best basketball. I agree with you, too. It could definitely be one of these 2 teams.
Or it could be Kentucky, the team that we know exactly does this exact thing every time this year comes around. Kentucky has top 10 talent in the NBA draft coming up, up and down the roster, first-round talent up and down the roster. They've been playing their best defense of the year, which has been their biggest knock, that Kentucky's been giving up way too many points, that Kentucky is not doing enough on offense. But Kentucky is finally putting it together. Top 10 in Ken Palmer, top 15 in Ken Palmer when it comes to their offensive rating. Kentucky is the hottest team in America next to Arizona and Virginia right now. And to count out Coach Cal, the God. That's what we don't do. So Kentucky is my surprise Final Four team.
I could buy it.
Kentucky's playing their best ball of the year right now, but that is a tough path, having to go through DeAndre Ayton in Arizona in the round of 32, and then Virginia. Tough path for Kentucky.
Speak that him. And
then, the other big question for Kentucky, they just don't have any shooting. And it's tough to see a team like that that's going to need to dominate the
Gabriel
offensive
was
glass.
12 of 12 from three-point line against Alabama.
I know.
Let me ask you this. What are your full Final Fours?
Already? We're already getting there?
Well, do you have it?
We want to do it right now?
Do you have it?
I'd go Virginia, I'd go Xavier just because I went there and I got a pull for them. But again, the West is wacky. Anything could happen in the West. I'll take Nova and I'll take Duke. So I know that's not a super stretch, but those are my 4 right now.
I got Virginia, but man, that game against Ayton and Arizona is going to be crazy in the Sweet 16. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona pulls the upset. That said, I did pick Virginia, so I'll stick with Virginia. I got Gonzaga, I got Villanova, I got Michigan State, I got Nova winning it all.
Well, that's not going to happen. But for my Final Four, I've got Kentucky, I've got UNC, I've got Kansas, and I've got West Virginia. I've got a bunch of different teams that nobody really is expecting, but that's why they give it to the seasoned vet to expect them. All right, let's move on to this round 2. Let's move on to this round 2.
What are we doing?
Pick one, Nick.
Law and Order. I never binge watched the show, but
You ever been arrested?
yes.
All right, Law and Order. Which team is the most criminally underseeded? Rick, remember to write, okay?
I got it, man.
right.
We were out last time.
Oh,
Most
yeah.
criminally
I mean,
underseeded.
This is obvious, though.
You know what?
You're going to change it? Mix it up a little bit?
I'm going to just give the people what they really want here.
Oh, right, yeah. That's good. So we both agree, but we're just presenting it differently. So I say Arizona, he says
I'm saying
DeAndre.
DeAndre Ayton, the one-man army for Arizona, the best player in college basketball to me, certainly the most physically dominant player. I mean, there is no one in this field who can check DeAndre Ayton, 7'1", 260 pounds, 7'5" wingspan. Incredibly quick off the ground. DeAndre Ayton jumps 3 times faster than most college basketball players can jump once. He's got a face-up game if you want to hit him in the pick and pop. You can throw the oop to him in the pick and roll. There's no holes in DeAndre Ayton's game on the offensive side of the floor. You don't even need him to lock down the defense because they're playing 2 centers with him and Dusan Ristic.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the thing is about Zona, and I agree with you, I had them. It's about if Alonzo Trier wants to be Michael Jordan or not. Remember last year against Xavier in the Sweet 16, he tried to take over. He didn't get the ball to Markkanen. He didn't distribute it all, and they ended up blowing it in the last 90 seconds. It depends on where he fits in to that system. If he plays a role and understands that the best player on the court is not him, it's Ayton, they might be all right. Because you really can't stop him. I mean, he's kind of like a modern-day Wilt Chamberlain, which is a huge stretch to say. But, I mean, he can pretty much do anything, and you can't stop him.
What's wild about this, though, is the committee had Arizona is the weakest of the 4 seeds, which just blows my mind being paired with the number 1
But they
overall
hated the
seed
Pac-12 this year, if you think about it.
in Virginia. But, like, look at some of these other teams. Arizona was preseason top 3 for a reason.
Yeah.
This team is stacked with talent from top to bottom. Also, Arizona's all in. They might not even have a squad next year. All their recruits decommitted.
They're dissolving the program after that.
I mean, Trier and Ayton will be gone. Raleigh Alkins will probably be gone. Ristich and Parker Jackson Cartwright graduate. Arizona's all in this season. I would love to see them.
No,
make
it would be a
Final
great.
Four
Again,
run
it's a
and,
great
like,
story.
Hang a wiretap from the rim when they cut down the nets.
Well, obviously the favorite
doesn't
pick
like
here
our
is
jokes.
Arizona. The favorite pick here is Arizona. I have to go with Arizona too. I mean, there's too much talent on the roster to be seeded as a 4 seed. It's almost in the same vein, disrespectful that Michigan State's a 3 seed almost. But Arizona's a 4 seed makes absolutely no sense except for the fact that there's an FBI probe going on. But if you just paid the players, we wouldn't have this issue. But let's go to the last bit of round 2. Last bit, we've got disappearing acts. Who's the best player who probably won't make it to the Sweet 16?
Oh, I like this one. All right. I'm going Aaron Holiday because he probably won't even make it to the first round of the tournament. They still going to play a playing game on UCLA. Who they're playing? St. Bonaventure, I think.
Like St. Bonnie's a little spicy.
I mean,
It's a little spicy.
Yeah, that's no guarantee. I mean, Holiday's one of the best guards in the country, but we may not even see him get to Thursday. So I think it's pretty clear or pretty safe to say they won't make it, past the first weekend of the tournament.
I love Aaron Holiday. Big fan of the Holiday family in general. Justin Holiday, great. Drew Holiday, great. But he's no Trae Young. And I just feel like as a 10 seed, Oklahoma, I mean, they got Duke in the round of 32 if they win their first round game. There's been a lot of backlash to Trae Young, I think, in part because he was covered so heavily by ESPN, by websites like SBNation.com as well. People just got oversaturated with hearing Trae Young's name, hearing how good Trae Young is. Trae Young was still amazing.
It thinned his hair out.
Me,
It just thinned his hair out.
It really did. To me, Trae Young was, the biggest story and the best player in college basketball all year. Led the country in points per game and assists per game. unbelievable passer, deep shooting range. Is he a perfect player? No. But Trae Young defined this college basketball season more than any other player. And, if you're asking who's the best player not to make it to the Sweet 16, to me it's Trae Young. How about get some teammates, Oklahoma? And this is like Trae Young and a bunch of two-stars.
I want to hear Tyler's
Give him some help here.
Well,
He's pretty passionate.
while that's true, while that's very true, I mean, Oklahoma has a team that just has scrubs. It's just YMCA guys and Trae Young, and I think that's kind of what wore him out, especially for the national media, is that this is a guy who did play so well, but what were his numbers? What were his adjustment numbers? How inflated were these stats? How many shots did he take per game? And eventually, how many turnovers did he have per game? Eventually, teams in college basketball, especially in that conference, catch up to a talent like Trae Young because they're doing it with dynamic guards every single year. I mean, Javon Carter's been playing basketball for 25 years, so, I mean, they have to match that level of talent and intensity every year, so it finally caught up to him. But the best player who won't be in the Sweet 16 is probably Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson for Villanova, probably maybe the best point guard in America, is going to get bounced by a younger, smoother, Millie Rockin' Colin Sexton. There's no way that I see Villanova getting to the Sweet 16 because Colin Sexton and the Alabama Finger Roll Tide are going to take care of those guys.
I mean, Alabama's got a lot of talent. I love watching Alabama play basketball. Sexton's just the most captivating player in the field, arguably, from an entertainment standpoint. They've got some other cool guys, too. John Petty, Herb Jones, awesome. I don't see them beating Villanova, though. But Villanova's
you
my
say
national
cool
title.
guys. Are they good guys? I mean, they may not even beat Virginia Tech.
They're cool and good guys, and they will beat that Buzz Williams team.
I love Sexton. Don't get me wrong, but I don't even know if they can get past Virginia Tech.
It's a little caliente for my taste. I can't respect that. Ooh. Let's go to round 3 on our Magic. You see that? The Magic of Ryan Nanny. It's already up there. Ricky, what are you picking?
Give me pumpkin recipes.
Is that the only one that you can pronounce?
I think so.
All right. Pumpkin recipes, because you got that spice. Which popular upset pick are you just not seeing? Which popular upset pick are you just not seeing?
I don't know exactly what is a popular. God, I really.
Well, every year, because we have the seeding with these teams, we do see the teams like a Michigan who's a 3 seed, or the teams like a Michigan State who's a 3 seed who they feel low, or you have Arizona this year who's a 4 seed and they feel low. So, I mean, there's going to be the games where you feel like these teams are going to get upset. There's going to be these games where Villanova's a 2 seed or 3 seed and they're going to lose in the round of 32, or it's going to be Gonzaga and they feel like they're going to get beat down by a 9 seed. Like, this happens. Villanova and NC State, the exact thing happened in 2015, or 2016. So, it's not uncommon that these things happen. Ricky?
We both got the same answer.
We had the same one, but I got a backup here. So we both said Marshall. You go first.
I mean, if you look on KenPom, Marshall is rated worse than like some of the 15 seeds. Marshall's just not a great team. The way that Marshall was able to get in this tournament is that they just pushed the pace under Dan D'Antoni, Mark D'Antoni's brother.
I mean, they're the poor man's Houston Rockets, right? I mean, they shoot a lot of threes, they run fast, they have the same family that's coaching them.
You know what? That strategy works when you have a ton of talent and you want the most possessions to turn the game in your favor. Marshall just isn't one of those teams, and I feel like, typically for an underdog, you want them to slow the pace down, to limit possessions. Marshall's trying to run up the tempo and blitz you, so I just don't see that beating a good Wichita State team led by Landry Schmidt. Just quality team all around, knows what they're doing, track record of NCAA tournament success. I think they win.
All right, so I'll update mine to San Diego State, who I think people will want to pick them given name recognition. They've had a lot of success in the tournament in the past. That people know their brand. No one really knows Houston. They probably think that, that's a one-hit wonder or something. But San Diego State's not very good. They made a nice run in the Mountain West tournament, and that's about it. I think people are going to be a little high on them now. But momentum, as we've said in the past, is not really a real thing. They just happen to win their conference tournament, and I think that Houston will take care of them with ease.
Which upsets do you guys want to see then?
Or I want to see. I mean, I think Loyola Chicago over Miami is technically it's not an upset because Vegas is, favoring Loyola. But I think when you look at the seeds, that's almost a no-brainer based on their metrics and how they play.
I want to see Penn over Kansas. I just think that would be terrific if we could get that to happen. The 16's never beaten one, obviously. It's going to happen one of these years. It's almost unlikely, given the mathematical odds, that it hasn't happened yet. If Azubuike doesn't play, Penn's underseeded as a 16.
Then Kansas will probably still win by 30. Right. Crazy. The one I don't see is Marshall. The Marshall thing, I haven't respected Marshall since Randy Moss played there. So I'm not going to respect Marshall now. Great that you guys made the tournament. You're going to get slapped.
See, I thought you said the upset you want to see.
I'm saying first, the upset that people see that I don't see is the Marshall one.
Yeah.
The upset that I do see that's possible, and it's not a huge upset. It's just a 7 to a 10. That's Providence coming out and beating Texas A&M. I'm not sold on Texas A&M. It's not there for me. But I am sold on the House of Ed Cooley, and that's what it's going to be. So it's a small upset, not a big one. A 10 over a 7, but give me Providence in that matchup, and who knows? Maybe give me Providence again over UNC.
Hang on, we can agree.
Roads,
We all want Penn. We all want to see.
That's what I'm saying.
We all want to see Penn beat Kansas.
Yeah, that would just be funny. If we're saying the upset we do see, though, I got to ride for Loyola, too, as the Chicago guy here. They won the conference by 4 games in the regular season. They beat Florida on the road when Florida was top 5. They had an RPI in the top 30 or 40 all year. So this Loyola team is really solid. Clayton Custer, former Iowa State recruit. He transferred to Loyola. He's the conference player of the year. Loyola's got game, I think.
They got a lot of game.
I'll pass on it. Let's go. Basin Boy Nick, what are we picking here?
Epistemology, did I get that right?
Epistemology, a word Ricky can't say. All right.
Epistemology.
Right.
What's the hardest team for you to predict? What's the hardest team in this field, a field full of parity, for you to predict? Ricky, you look a little.
He's got a cheat sheet.
Look a little confused.
His computer died. He has
a little confused. The hardest team for you to predict. Ricky, what do we got?
I'm going to say Purdue.
Why Purdue?
Purdue was in the top 3 of the rankings for the majority of the second half of the season. They have all these shooters, 40% three-point shooters around Isaac Haas. It's classic 4-out offense. But the problem with Purdue is that too often they fall into feeding Haas too much. They get away from the shooters. They get away from what makes them great, which is Carson Edwards creating offense off the dribble, being able to kick out to the shooters or dump it to Haas. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a team that's primed for an upset.
Purdue is similar to, like, when somebody brings potato salad past the cookout and you don't know who they are, and you got to try it. Sometimes, you dip your finger in, you get a little bowl, and like, I wasn't expecting this. It's kind of good. But most times you're like, I'm not going to fall for the jig. I'm not going to fall for the gag. Like, I can't trust Purdue. Purdue's just not a team I can trust, so it makes it even harder for them to predict because they've got so many different guys that could be talented.
Who could beat them in that bracket, though?
I got them losing to Arkansas in the round of 32.
You see how much respect they're not putting on Purdue's
0,
name?
yeah. No, I could see it. Arkansas's got a big man that could defend Haas. It's a matter of, like, if you can take Haas out of it and not double him, and then you just guard the perimeter players, then you have a chance. So you need a big that can at least neutralize Haas and limit how he passes out of the double team.
Basin Boy Nick, what is the hardest team to predict?
Florida. Yeah. I think that they're hard because they can't, they're just very inconsistent. They started the season off really well. They can shoot, but then they can't. And you kind of can tell within the first 5-10 minutes of a game where a Florida Gator game is going to head. They've had some bad losses, but some great wins. I think they have a lot of talent. They may have, 1, maybe 2 pros on their team. I like how they play, but I just can't get a handle on them. And they're not one of those teams that you'd want to bet on because you never really know what you're going to get out of them based on how they perform. They're very 3-point reliant. If they make shots early, they just keep it rolling. If they don't, they keep taking threes because they don't really have any other options offensively, and then they're screwed. It's too late. The game's over. So I think that the Gators are a stay-away team in terms of, who you'd want to put your money on.
Florida's a great answer for this because I could see them losing to the winner of St. Bonaventure UCLA. Yeah. I could see them beating Texas Tech. You know what I mean? In the next round.
Right. That's
potentially even beating Purdue after that. So they have such high variance because we've seen them at the PK80 at their peak. They look like one of the better teams in the country. They were top 5. They lose 3 in a row. They lose to Loyola at home. That team's been up and down all season, but when they're cooking, they look really good.
And sometimes in the tournament, one team gets hot, and that's all that you need. But they just don't have, a lot of versatility on offense. So.
And see, for me, I'm going to go the complete opposite direction with this. It's very, very hard for me to predict the path for Virginia. Virginia's got to come out and play a solid UMBC team. Then has to come out and probably play either Creighton or K-State. Then has to come out and play Kentucky or Arizona. It's hard for me to predict exactly what's going to happen with Virginia because this could be the same Virginia that we see during the regular season and they cruise their way to the Final Four, or it's a Virginia team that loses between the round of 32 and between the Elite 8. But for a team that's done this well, that's only lost 2 times this season, it's very hard to predict because they've been given the roughest path of any one seed because we just won't pay the players what they are owed, and you could have made Arizona a bigger seed. I'm just saying. It's whatever. I'm just saying. But Virginia, it's really hard to predict because outside of the fact they can be very shaky at offense and go up to 5 minutes at a time without scoring the basketball and go on serious droughts in the second half, they have so much talent stacked against them coming out of their round that it makes it really hard to see if they're a team that gets upset early or a team that can last until the national championship.
Two things I'll say about Virginia, though. On offense, 9 times out of 10, they get the shot they want, right? I mean, they pretty much can do what they need on offense. I mean, granted, it takes them a long time because they play so slow. But they usually don't force shots. And then on defense, you cannot play at a fast pace against them. They always control the pace. So you have to be able to adjust to what they do and still outmuscle them and outperform them. And that's kind of why we like Arizona against them, because they just have raw talent, right? So I think in the half court, full court, whatever, Arizona and Ayton could beat Virginia because Virginia will not give up what they do best. So you have to kind of play the way that they play, and then if you want to beat them.
We've got a question from YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
We got comments?
We keep the comments, right? So, YouTube question. Can you guys discuss the bottom half of the Midwest with TCU, Michigan State, Rhode Island, Oklahoma, and those Dukies?
So the Midwest, to me, is the toughest region for sure. Having Kansas, Duke, and Michigan State all in the same region is just crazy. We're potentially looking at a Michigan State-Duke Sweet 16 game. That would be as intriguing as any possible Final Four national championship matchup to me. I was at their first game in Chicago when they played in the Champions Classic. That was a terrific game. There was just NBA players all over the floor: Miles Bridges, Jaren Jackson, Marvin Bagley, Gary Trent. Just so much talent is going to be on the floor in that Sweet 16 game. I have Michigan State coming out of that bracket because I think they sort of have the fewest holes on their roster of all those teams. They have some great big men in Nick Ward and Jaren Jackson, an inside scoring threat, and a guy who can protect the rim and shoot from the outside in Jackson. They have Bridges, who's one of the better players in college basketball, coming back for sophomore year. Don't sleep on Cassius Winston, who shot like 53% from three this year, was one of the college basketball's leaders in assist rate. They have some shooting off the bench with McQuaid. So I just think Michigan State in general, they have pretty much everything you're looking for. I will say, though, that I've sort of been expecting them to be better all season. They do strike me as a little bit of a team where, like, the individual parts are kind of better than the whole from what we've seen so far.
The thing about Michigan State, and whoever asked that question, they're probably not a Duke or a Michigan State fan.
They're strongly not a Duke or a Michigan.
Right. So they probably want to see if their team can make it past one of those two teams or both, and it's not going to happen. Michigan State, what I like about them, again, it feels like they kind of underperform, but if you look at their roster, they pretty much fill every type of role you need on a national championship team. They have a freshman stud. They have a sophomore stud. They have a shooter from outside. They have a pretty good point guard who can shoot. They have every type of player. And then you have Duke that just has one of the most incredible starting fives I've seen in the last few years. Only 2 teams in America are ranked in the top 10 in offensive defensive efficiency on KenPom. It's Michigan State and Duke. So maybe there's a seeding thing there that we could discuss. But bottom line is both those teams are going to make it to the Sweet 16 and play each other. Nothing else really matters.
Duke's defense is Duke's defense is trash, though.
Okay, it's not trash because it's in the top 10. Now, yes, eye test would suggest it's probably a
trash bags, not them loogie bags.
But they've had some really bad defensive teams, like in the 70s and 60s on KenPom, and to be in the top 10 has to say something.
It
says their stats are dope.
Start 5 NBA prospects, and you're playing a 2-3 zone.
Yeah, they got length,
man.
Why not? Sometimes
I'm hating on the zone, dude. You got that much talent, that much athleticism. You got to play man-to-man defense.
The other side of this, too, when it comes to that side of the bracket, is that the only surprise sleeper that might be in there is not TCU, because we don't trust the state of Texas. It's not Bucknell, because we barely trust the state of Pennsylvania. It might be Rhode Island. It might be a Hurley team, because that Hurley team by itself is scoring upwards to the high 60s on KenPom, with their offense, Ricky. They're scoring really high in their offense. So if we're going to have an offensive dynamite, a blowout there between Duke, who can't really play defense, it would come from Rhode Island. It'd be a really good Rhode Island game.
Rhode Island could challenge them given how they play, but they won't.
It probably won't happen, but it'll be a good game to watch, because Duke's definitely going to be at Iona, and that Rhode Island Duke game will be fun, but it shouldn't be anything like super, super surprising. Another YouTube question: can you boys discuss Murray State versus West Virginia? Ricky, we'll start with you, because you were talking real brazy. You was talking about how Murray State might be able to win that game.
Yeah, I got the Racers in that game. I think Murray State.
He knows their nickname.
But he's got to Google it first.
They won the Ohio Valley in the regular season. They won the conference tournament. Jonathan Stark, senior guard, one of the better players in the country, 40% three-point shooter, almost never comes off the floor for them. You need great guards in March. You need teams that push the tempo, or not push the tempo, that slow the tempo.
No, you don't want them to
that
push
limit
the tempo.
possessions. That limit possessions. Murray State does limit possessions. They're only 216 in tempo. So I just like the way Murray State plays. I think that they have a chance.
No, they definitely have a chance. I'm not sold on this one yet, but it's definitely in my periphery of like 1 or 2 or 3 of the upsets that I want to pick because they can shoot and they got good guards, like Ricky said. The challenge is that press, right? I mean, West Virginia's press is very difficult to prepare for, but they do have 4 days to prepare for it, 4 or 5 or whatever. You know, if they had to turn around on a one-day thing and they're playing in the second round, that's a lot more difficult because you can't simulate that in a hotel ballroom, you know, the night before a game. But you have a few days to prepare for that press, so I think that they have a chance. They just have to shoot the ball well, and then they could stay in it. It's a 9.5-point spread, so I think that alone, you could at least get a cover out of that.
They got to be confident, though. They've won 13 games in a row at this point. You look at their losses. They lost to Auburn by 4, who won the SEC in the regular season.
Trash.
They barely lost to Middle Tennessee, who we know was a really good team.
Who's not
throughout
with
the
their
year.
talent
Yeah,
level.
but they were good throughout the season. So
The thing that becomes tricky about this time of March is that everybody kind of gets excited to win some big money in their bracket, right? If we look at West Virginia, if we look at Huggy Bear, if we look at the way this team's made up, who has one of the best players in the tournament in Javon Carter, who's just 35 years old, and it's not a big deal.
whatever.
Look, man, West Virginia is the one that's going to, they're going to get far, at least in my bracket, they're getting far. So Murray State shouldn't be that much of an obstacle to them. Murray State, at least in conference, is one of the better defenses in their conference. They're holding opponents to almost 65 points per game, which is a little bit better than what West Virginia is doing. But when the bright lights come on, it's Huggy Bear.
Well,
baby.
you know what?
It's
Huggy Bear's lucky he doesn't have to face Thomas Walkup and Stephen F. Austin this year because we saw what happened in that game.
That was the same kind of team as well.
Why you bringing up old stuff? Why you bringing up the past?
Do you have any more YouTube comments and questions?
No. They don't rock with us that heavy. We get 2 questions. So let's go to the last one. Ricky, do you know how I say this word right there? One more time?
You got, yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
It's coup d'etat. You sure? Coup d'etat? All right. Which 1 or 2 seed is getting knocked out earliest?
I already said Purdue, so I feel like I got to switch this up.
Or you could talk about why the Boilermakers aren't a real thing. I mean, it's, however you feel. Which 1 or 2 seed is going to get knocked out early?
Yeah, well,
I'm going to tell you.
Ricky and I are so in sync.
I'm going to tell you that they're both wrong as hell, but come on.
That's good. All right. So we both got Cincy, UC, who we don't hate. I mean, I like what they've done this year. The challenge is
Who are they losing to, though?
Nevada.
Ricky, are they losing to Nevada?
I mean, I can see it happen. Nevada's just got a bunch of, bruisers on that team.
But they can score. They're physical and they can score.
Right, yeah. Jordan Caroline, Simeon Rice's son, he's just a great inside-outside threat. Kendall Stevens has canned 153 pointers as a Purdue transfer this year. He's one of the better shooters in the country. And they got the Martin twins, transfers from NC State. They got an NBA coach with Eric Musselman. Nevada was a team I was riding hard for last year on this.
Sure
election
was.
show.
Sure
and
was.
they let me down horribly. But you know what? Nevada won't do this to me twice.
Think about UC. Go look at who they played and who they've lost to. They've lost to Xavier, Florida, great offensive teams, so when they're rolling, they're hard to stop. They lost to Houston and Wichita State the first time they played them in conference. Good offensive teams. They had to beat Wichita State and Houston the second time they played them, or they did, so they kind of got used to them. But it seems like when they go up against a team that can play offense and is physical and isn't, scared of Mick Cronin and his defense, they don't really have a chance. And so as a 2 seed, I mean, I think they're seeded correctly, but I think Nevada is probably a little underseeded here based on what they've done and what they can do given their roster. So I think Nevada advances into the Sweet 16 and beats Cincinnati.
Yeah, y'all are wrong. Y'all are
Cool.
fine. Y'all are wrong. I mean, first of all, we put in no respect on Mo Bamba's name to carry the entire team of Texas. The only thing we might respect in Texas actually is Mo Bamba because he came from where? From Philly. I don't see Nevada beating
from
Texas.
Harlem.
He's not from Harlem.
He's from Harlem.
He went to Westtown Academy. That's Philly. We got to. It's our boy.
man.
We gave him his edge. The point is that Mo Bamba and that Texas crew is. I mean, they're not gonna.
A big man can't win you a game. I mean, well,
Ask Trae Young how that feel.
but what I'm saying is Mo Bamba, if he was like a guard or something, he could just have the ball and control the game. It's hard for a big man to control a game like that.
And
Now
Nevada's
you're just gonna throw ill on DeAndre Ayton name. See, it's crazy.
He's Will Chamberlain, though. That's different.
Nevada's going to get most of their points from the outside. They're not challenging Ayton at the rim. Ayton's going to lock down the paint, but Nevada can beat you from the three-point line.
That's why Bamba's gonna have 30 and 30. A few more YouTube comments, so maybe we pop in. It seems like people really want to hear about St. Mary's being out of this tournament. They want to hear about Michigan being hot, the Beeline boys, and they want to hear about why the hell is ASU in this thing.
Can I take St. Mary's?
Let's go rapid fire here.
Like-
Why is St. Mary's out of this tournament?
Because they're boring.
A 28
good
win
riddance.
team
Who
that's
cares?
Yeah.
They're boring.
Play someone,
They
guys.
don't schedule. They're afraid to play real teams. They can't just sit in the West Coast Conference and like hope to God that they might win their conference tournament or may beat Gonzaga once. Like they have to go out and schedule.
Gonzaga.
They don't deserve to be in the tournament, and they're not, thankfully. And they're really just not fun to watch at all. So I am totally fine with St. Mary's not being in the field at all.
Wow, Jock Landale better not be watching this show.
No,
because he's going to be
his
pretty
mom would
upset
probably be really
with these
upset with
comments.
28 win teams, especially if you're in a conference as okay as the WCC, probably should get in because we let Gonzaga in every year, and sometimes it's just only because they won their tournament.
You know,
So
Gonzaga plays teams.
let bad league 28 win teams into the conference. It's fine. It's fine.
I mean,
It's
I
fine.
take him over Syracuse. But that says more about Syracuse
I mean,
than St. Mary's.
St. Mary's
What
lost
about-
to Washington State, and Georgia. I mean, they beat San Jose State. I mean, congratulations. They beat St. Francis of Pennsylvania, wherever that is.
Pennsylvania's out in Pittsburgh.
Sacramento State. I mean, that's a tough schedule, man. I mean, come on.
Hey, look, man, a lot of teams that win their conference tournaments, a lot of teams that are actually good in conference, play cupcake non-conference schedules. And then you got the WCC on top of that. The first year the Big East came out, the Big East was horrible. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's what we do in college basketball. I have no problem with your kids getting excited for the year, getting some good wins up, getting momentum into the conference schedule. 28 wins, you should not miss the tournament. On top of that, really quickly, why is Arizona State playing right now?
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, they
Well,
beat Xavier. They
they're-
beat Kansas at home. Like, they had those, like, super good wins.
Two good
early part
wins
of the
early
season.
before January?
Well, that's the thing, though, is I hear something different every year, it feels like. It's like, do those early season wins matter the same as they do later in the season? I don't really know. I mean, have you heard anything? Because if they were to beat, Xavier in Florida later in the season, maybe like some recency bias would carry them in. But I thought that all wins were created equal. Maybe not. I'm not really sure.
I'll talk about Michigan a little bit.
Yeah,
since
tell me about the
YouTube
Beeline
wants to
boys.
know about the Beeline boys. This Michigan team is fascinating to me because never did I imagine this Michigan squad as one that would be a trendy Final Four team.
Well, they're just trendy.
They've won 9 in a row. They're arguably the hottest team in college basketball right now, this side of Murray State. Go Racers. But it's a cool team because they play 5-out basketball. They have Mo Wagner in the middle, stretch shooting 5-man from Germany, who's just been terrific for him. They have 2 really good wings, and Charles Matthews from Chicago, Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman as well. Those guys can fill it up from the outside. Matthews is their most athletic player. He's their best wing defender. Having a wing defender is a huge luxury in March Madness, especially as you advance further in the tournament. In their point guard, Xavier Simpson. I think Xavier Simpson is the worst college basketball player I've seen to have a very positive impact on the game. He's 5 foot
That's
nothing.
trippy.
He shoots 50% from the foul line. He can't make a 3. But he locks people down. Look what he did against Cassius Winston, who's like this advanced stats darling.
Yeah.
Cassius Winston has numbers that Xavier Simpson can't even dream about, and Xavier Simpson whooped him twice. So, I want to discount Michigan thinking they got a hold of point guard, thinking they don't have that upper echelon talent. Maybe they have a second-round pick with Mo Wagner, but there's not a lot of guys projected to go in the first round in this Michigan roster, despite the fact that a lot of people are picking them for the Final Four. With that being said, they just play well together, and it's a team that they're greater than the sum of their parts. I think we can
Absolutely.
safely say, and that's just the Beeline effect.
So you've given your Final Four already. So, broke boy Nick, who is winning the National?
Wait, am I broke boy or basic?
Well, if you're living in the
Gotta pick
basement,
one.
if you're living in the basement, you're also a broke boy because it's not like we're in a major city here. So, I mean, who's winning the national championship?
We writing this down using the whiteboards
Write
here?
it down. If you want to spell, Ricky. If you want to spell, go ahead and spell.
This is gonna piss off Tyler.
Wow, y'all are both wrong. It's amazing. Y'all are both wrong.
We both got Nova.
Oh, you got Nova too?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about
What?
this before. Yeah,
I thought you had Duke.
I maybe do.
Who's Villanova beating on your
No.
bracket that's winning the national championship? Who are they beating? So who are they beating?
Well, let's just look at the. Okay, so they're
Like
gonna
in
be
the title game, I got
In the
over
title game.
Virginia.
Oh, in the title game.
Yeah, in the title
Oh yeah,
game.
over Virginia.
You know what? I'm going to say they beat the winner of Virginia-Arizona. I picked Virginia in that game, but man, I want to pick Arizona. I would love to see Arizona just stick it to the
I would too. I
NCAA
think that'd be a
this
cool story. I think it'd be fun for that to play out. But yeah, back to Nova. Kind of like Virginia in the half-court offense, they can pretty much do what they want. They almost always get the shot that they want. They've been a little streaky shooting recently. I mean, sometimes they're shooting 80% from 3. Sometimes they can't hit anything. I think Brunson, being kind of like a robot, he's a really solid point guard. I like what they do in the half court. Again, games seem to kind of tighten up in the tournament, and they seem to have the makeup for it.
I can't believe you also picked Villanova, but my defense of Villanova is that they have a stud point guard. You want a stud point guard in March. Jalen Brunson, arguably the National Player of the Year in college basketball. They have a perfect role player in Mikal Bridges, who's just your classic 3-and-D guy, leveraging that 7'2" wingspan that Tyler cares so much about. He can check almost every position in college basketball. He essentially guards 1 through 5 at this level.
But he can't check anyone in the NBA, apparently.
He's also 44% three-point shooter. And then to me, what really sets Villanova apart from these other squads is if Brunson and Bridges have off nights, they have so many supplemental scoring options they can go to, whether it's Dante DiVincenzo, whether it's Phil Booth, whether it's Amari Spellman, who's given them a stretch 5 that no one saw coming as a high school player. Spellman was a guy you thought would be kind of a post-up guy, maybe pick and pop out to 15. He's shooting 45% from 3 this year. So that's a major luxury to have a center who can shoot like that, to have 2 guards who can create their own offense off the dribble, like DiVincenzo and Booth. You know, their defensive rating has been weaker than we expect from Villanova year in and year out, but I still think they have defensive talent at the point of attack. They have that wing who can shut down anyone in Bridges. I think Nova was my preseason pick, and they haven't done anything to dissuade me from picking them in this bracket.
Villanova is a team that if they get hot early, especially in almost any game this season, they're going to shoot extremely well. Jay Wright's motto, shoot 'em up and sleep in the street. It's a team that every single year, no matter how much three-point shooting talent they have, they're going to shoot the basketball. But the way that we've seen Villanova shoot the basketball in a lot of these different tournaments tells us usually that the fire can sometimes go out, except for when they won their last national championship. So Villanova is extremely dangerous to win a national championship this year. But Villanova's main problems are playing against length, and playing against very dynamic point guards with great dribble packages who can break down guys like Jalen Brunson, guys like Mikal Bridges off the switch, and guys that can put Omari Spellman in foul trouble early. So that's why I have Alabama beating Villanova in my round of 32. And for my national champion, I've got Kansas. I think the most stacked team, 1 to 5, except if they get into foul trouble. They've got too much star power and star talent between Devontae Graham and other shooters on that team that it's hard for me to go against Kansas this year. But I do have Kansas beating Kentucky because, look, man, Coach Cal sent me OVO jackets. I gotta ride with my team. So, I mean, I have Kentucky and Kansas playing for the national championship. And I got Kansas.
Now, you're ripping Nova for being too dependent on the 3. Nova's got guys who can get to the hoop with DiVincenzo, with Brunson. Kansas is almost exclusively dependent on the 3. They're playing 4 or 5 out basketball.
They got Graham
with Azubuike. And also, assuming Azubuike does come back, his injury status is one of the biggest wild cards in this entire tournament. But you know we're going to get into Hackadoke territory, where like he's a worse free throw shooter than like Tyler Tynes.
Do you think?
Fasulo.
I'm a great free throw shooter.
I mean, I'm already at the line as well. We're all
very good.
You're not good at basketball. I'm a great basketball player. But
do you think Azubuike's injury, like, does he need to be on this team to win?
I don't think Azubuike's injury is a problem right now. I expect him to come back by the Sweet 16, which I think they'll be in. But if he's a guy that can't come back by the Sweet 16, it changes a lot of what Kansas is really able to do, especially if they get into foul trouble early. But guys who can go to the rim, Devontae Graham and Newman, these are still guys who can score anywhere on the floor. When they run LaGerald Vick off the wing for alley-oops and they run him off those cuts and motions, these are guys that can get to the rim at will as well. The difference is they are very reliant on the 3, but we've seen Kansas beat almost every team in the nation. We've seen them be able to switch it up as well. But guys, any last thoughts about anything that's going to happen this year, or do you think we covered it?
Well, as we were talking about Nova and that Nova-Duke Final Four game, if that actually happens, that could be a really fascinating game. Because you talk about length and athleticism, and that can be a struggle for Villanova. That's really interesting. But then also, they may be able to slow it down and play half-court basketball, which is going to force Duke to have to run sets for 40 minutes when you've seen them have to play when they play from behind this year, it's really just been pushing the ball and forcing the issue. And if Villanova doesn't let them do that, that'll be a little bit challenging. So that is a Final Four game, could be very, very interesting if it gets there.
Absolutely.
One other thing I'll say about Kansas is Seton Hall, I think we might be kind of sleeping on. They could give, if they win the first round game, they could give Kansas a run in that second round.
Especially with their bigs.
So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Ricky?
I think that the Virginia-Arizona potential Sweet 16 matchup and the Duke-Michigan State potential Sweet 16 matchup, those are Final Four worthy quality games. Those are games we need to see. Now, Arizona could lose to Tyler's boys, the Kentucky Wildcats. I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen because we've seen Arizona, not always play up to their talent. And, Duke, Michigan State seems like it's going to happen on paper, but Trae Young against Duke, you never know. It could happen. With that being said, those are the Sweet 16 games I want to see. If we get those 2 games, I feel like this is just going to be a terrific tournament from start to finish.
Second round, Sweet 16 could have some really, really good games this year.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, it's been SB Nation's Bracket War Room Live. I'm Tyler Tynes. This is Ricky O'Donnell. This is Basement Never Going Broke. Nick Fasulo. Also want to thank Great Clips for giving Ricky all these great haircuts, and we're out.